Hey, welcome to HR Famous, brought to you by Kinetics, the leading RPO recruiting firm for growth companies. Named by HRO Today as the top midsize RPO provider, Kinetics uses its unique skill-based recruiter model to deliver on RPO engagements, allowing them to customize scope to meet your unique hiring needs. If you have recruiting challenges and want to consider RPO as a solution, give Kinetics a call. Find them online at kineticshr.com. HR Famous is also brought to you by HRU Tech, a contingent staffing firm specializing in engineering, IT, and technically related placements across multiple industries. If you're looking for technical talent or searching for a career, look no further than HRU Tech. Find them online at hrutech.com and call them today.
HR Famous, we are back with another edition of the podcast. This week, it's just KD, Chris Dunn out of Birmingham, Alabama. And we're at home, so I'm in Michigan, you're in Alabama. KD, how's it going?
It's going good. I always like it when you come in like you're from the deep South when you say Birmingham. It's awesome. We used to say Birmingham and Atlanta because Kinetics is based in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Company I work for, and I'm over there a lot, but obviously I haven't been there for a while, right?
Hey, that's kind of what happens in the COVID coronavirus era and the pandemic. Have we even decided on like what we're going to call this thing? It's still kind of crazy. People call it coronavirus, COVID, pandemic. It's all interchangeable.
I think we're going to clip it off eventually. I think we're going to call it like the Pando time.
Yeah.
Something like that.
For sure. So, KD, I want to start. We always kind of start with something a little fun. Ask you a question, and I'm going to ask you a question. So turns out because of the pandemic and coronavirus, Crocs. You know what I'm saying when I say Crocs? The shoes, the big.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
But they're nothing like the nicest looking thing in the world. Turns out healthcare workers like them because they're easy to clean, and with all the COVID stuff you have to clean. So Crocs has this kind of resurgence. So my question to you is, do you own a pair of Crocs, or have you ever owned a pair of Crocs?
The answer is a definitive no, Tim Sackett. Next question.
So I own a pair of Crocs, and I've actually bought these. Some people have bought Crocs for me. So back about 10 years ago when Crocs took off, maybe more. Was it 20 years ago? I have no idea. All the colleges started doing their own like theme Crocs. So like someone bought me a Michigan State pair of Crocs. I have no idea what happened to those puppies. And then my wife likes to wear Crocs around the house, like house shoes. So in Michigan, Katie, it gets cold. And in Alabama, you don't get very much cold weather. So we don't like to go around. Like I just like to wear shoes in the house, but I don't want to wear like my dirty shoes in the house. So then we have like house shoes. And so my wife got me a pair of winter Crocs. Now, do you know what winter Crocs are?
No, Tim.
Unlike just the plain rubber shoes, they take like a little fuzzy liner in them, and they're nice and soft and warm. So I have a winter pair of Crocs I wear around the house during the winter, and then I just wear like sandals, like slides in the summer. But so if you don't have Crocs, KD, like what are your house shoes? What do you wear in the house?
So it's interesting that Crocs have not come to the Dunn household. I'm gonna do a shout out to all the anti-Crocs people that are listening to this. I know Crocs kind of divide the listenership into two sections. I believe I'm going to quote. I forget the guy's name from Office Space. It's the neighbor, right, to Peter Gibbons in the apartment complex that he can hear. I think the thing he says is Peter asked him the question. Does anybody ever ask you if you've got a case of the Mondays? And his answer is the same answer I would give you when you say, do you wear Crocs? And I'm like, no. I'm like, this guy, no, man. I believe you might get your you-know-what kicked if you brought a pair of Crocs in here. So I'm gonna do a shout out to the anti-Crocs people. I see you, anti-Crocs people. It's okay. Don't be bullied by Tim Sackett in his winter Crocs. Now, I will say this, Tim.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So Mrs. Dunn has a hard rule, no shoes in the house. We even
Okay.
have a sign. We even have a small, like, polite sign on our, like, in our front door by the doorbell that discreetly says, "Take off your freaking shoes."
Now, I assume I haven't been to your house, Katie, but I know your
You're
style.
invited. You're
I know
invited.
I know Angela's style. I assume you have a lot of wood floor, tile floor in the Dunn household.
Right. So
So what?
go ahead.
So
Yeah, go ahead and
why
keep drawing that out.
why no shoes if you're not going to mess up carpet? Like the floors are easy to clean.
You know, it's been a few years, so I forget what the answer to that question
It's
was.
because
I
you have
think
those boys dragging mud in the house. I know why.
the Dunn brothers and me as kind of a, honorary Dunn brother have just kind of stopped asking that question, Tim. We just take off our shoes. Now there is a little, like, grace given on the wood area, but not for very long.
Mhm.
And, like, the rugs that are down, like, across the wood,
It shows.
don't be stepping on that. So if you need to go for a quick drink and then go right back out, you best be
Walk around
taking
the runner.
the circular route. So
All right,
yeah, no
I got
Crocs.
you. Okay, so we spent 5 minutes on Crocs, so I'll let you go on that one. You didn't answer the question because I'm a shoe whore, so I have every kind of shoe imaginable. Well, you did answer because you don't wear shoes in the house, so you just go, barefoot. Or do you have hot, like?
No,
so you guys
we don't have house shoes, so it's socks, and you'd be happy to know that I have a winter form of athletic sock that I would
Nice.
wear in
Oh,
the
thicker?
2 months of winter
I hate you.
in Alabama.
Okay, so at HR Famous today, by the way, shout out to Jay Lee. She couldn't make it. Actually had work stuff. Go imagine that.
Work.
So we'll let her go do her work stuff. But KD, like recently, there's been a ton of compensation strategy stuff that's come to light because of all the pandemic stuff. So I got 3 different ones we're going to talk about. The first one was from a New York Times article that was talking about really. It was how organizations are making a couple of different decisions. One decision is, hey, we're going to cut everyone's pay right now because it's tight times, and we're all going to take a 10%, 15% pay cut, whatever it might be. Sometimes they're doing it by level, right? So like the lower pay you are, the less, and then as you get to executives, they're taking more. Some are just saying, hey, we're not going to cut pay, we're going to cut heads altogether. So wondering when we get to those kinds of strategies and you see that play out, because here's my take, right, is that I think I would rather cut heads than cut pay, because I think what will happen is if you cut everyone's pay, what you end up with is everybody kind of feeling bad about it, right? Everyone took a hit. Even though you saved some jobs, now you have even your best performers just took a hit. You have people who are crappy performers or weaker performers who took a hit, but they're just like, well, I'm just happy to have a job because I'm not a very good performer, even though
Right.
they think they are. Versus going, you know what, let's just cut off the bottom half or cut off the bottom lower performers and keep everybody whole. Give me your thoughts.
Well, I think it's a really interesting question. I think it's cultural in nature. So I think 2 things. I think the folks that would say, hey, we're going to reduce salaries across the board rather than make cuts, there's 2 things going on. First of all, I think there's a defined, like, cultural play that probably comes from the top, that's the way they want to do it. But I think more importantly, Tim, I'll throw it back to you for, like, your reaction to this. I think more importantly, I think some of that's based on what you think is happening in the economy during this COVID period and when it's coming back. And I think one of the things that has happened, and I think every business is different, but I think one of the things that's happened, like, if you go back to mid-March when all this started going down, I think most of us thought at the time that, we're all going to, like, shut this thing down for 6 to 8 weeks and we're going to be good. I think we've seen a little longer tail. So I can't blame any folks that made the decision to cut salaries across the board rather than cut people. But I think it gets tricky for different industries. If you're in an industry that's been pretty resilient, like during this time, and has been impacted some, but hasn't been impacted dramatically, you're probably okay. And that was probably the right call for you if you made it. I think there's some people that probably did that might get caught if their business took a big hit.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point. I think one of those things of saying, hey, If we believe that we're going to come back whole or as close to whole as we were pre-COVID,
Right.
post-COVID, then yeah, maybe let's just hang on to all the talent we have and reduce wages and try to figure out how do we limp ourselves to the end of this thing. If you know for sure that your business is not going to come back in the same manner, I guess at that point it makes it a little bit easier decision to cut people altogether. And then at that point, if you're going to be lean, you're going to need the best talent you have. You're going to need them whole. You're going to need them motivated. And so that makes sense from that for sure.
Hey, can I give you like a quick case study in this?
Yeah.
So think about Airbnb. Like 2-3 weeks ago, they like finally came out and they said, "Hey, we're cutting 25% of our staff." Right. So that's that's more than a hard furlough. That was I believe a layoff with severance. Now that CEO widely acclaimed for how he handled that from a communications and a process perspective. But if you look at Airbnb, if you think about, okay, there's also kind of the thought, how much do you cut? How much do you have to cut? And if Airbnb looked at it and said, hey, you know what, just like the first round of this, we hope this is enough, is 25%. It's one thing to cut salaries across the board 10%. It's another thing to take 25% off the top, right? So there's different levels of pain. And I think Airbnb like waited a little bit. They burned through some cash.
Yeah.
Most definitely. They waited a little bit. And when they get to that level, I think some of it comes down to the level you have to cut as well, right?
No, like Airbnb is a great one. I'll tell you that like their business has taken a hit. So like it's really hard to find like 4th of July vacation homes in Michigan on the lake, like at the big lake.
Now you can get them anywhere you want them, right?
They're all over the place. And I was kind of surprised by that. I thought people still would go, nope, we're still going to go, keep our vacation, go to the lake. And people are just cutting like, no, like, well, I want to go into a house that, an entire family was in before us and maybe they all had the COVID and there's no way you're going to clean that thing well enough. So I didn't think they would take the hit, but they did. On a totally separate note, but on vacation thing with this. So, Vegas is opening up June 4th, right, Katie? Right around there. So,
Yeah.
So the D, which is a Detroit themed casino in Old Vegas, they decided to give away 1,000 one-way tickets to Vegas for the opening. Everyone opening up, and they got rid of all 1,000 one-way tickets in less than an hour.
I'm sure that goes back to the whole cruise thing, right? It's like, why are you still on a cruise in April? Like that's hard to believe. And regardless of your belief, your belief structure in terms of whether we should shut down or not, like to be on a cruise in April or to take a one-way ticket to the D for early June is now you're saying that the D is a casino in Vegas?
Old Town Vegas, and it's Detroit themed. So when you go in there, they're playing the Wings games and the Pistons games.
That's wacky. How do they have a Detroit themed casino in Old Vegas? Okay, I digress. Hey, the other thing about like the pay cuts versus just the straight up cuts on a furlough or a layoff basis is I think one thing I'm kind of proud of for a lot of folks is I think folks got whatever your approach is, whether you go cuts across the board or you go straight up furlough layoffs, however you do it, I think executive teams and kind of the next rung of management have done a really good job at taking pay cuts regardless of what the answer is below them. I think, that's something pretty consistent that people have done. And, I think it's hard to do either one of those things, cuts, pay cuts across the board or furloughs, layoffs, whatever your strategy is, unless you take some of the pain. And typically you have to take more of the pain than you're asking your folks to.
Yeah, and I think in the public companies for sure, those like CEOs or executive teams that have like said, hey, we're not going to take a salary during this time at all, because they're getting other executive comp, right? They're getting
there's a lot of incentive comp.
So for them doing that, I think that's like the best possible scenario. If you're like the CEO and you're like, hey, we're going to ask everybody to take a 10% cut, I'm going to take a 15 or a 20% cut when you're making 1,000 times more than your average worker. Like, come on, man. Like that doesn't play well. But when you get to SMBs and smaller companies and they're shared like that, those people are still living on that income. That's really the best way. So next, we had three different kinds of strategy stuff that's going on that I think all organizations are going to have to question. So here's another one. Facebook comes out. They say, hey, if you want to work at home forever, quote unquote, air quotes, forever.
Cool.
Yeah. Go ahead and do that. But understand, if you live someplace cheap, we're going to cut your pay. So, hey, we're Silicon Valley based, or you might be in another kind of Facebook office that's in Austin or whatever. You said, you know what, I'm going to work from home. I'm going to move to some town in the middle of North Dakota. It costs 13 cents a year for rent, there or whatever.
Right.
Then they're going to actually cut your pay. I'm wondering, they said that. They didn't say, hey, if I live in this North Dakota town, but then I decide I accept a job with Facebook and I move to Silicon Valley, are you going to increase my salary to that amount? I think this is one of those things where you go, this is going to be hard to manage because someone's going to go, oh, like, let's say I'm in Silicon Valley. My parents have a house in Silicon Valley or a condo, apartment, whatever. I'm going to use that as my address, but I'm going to go live someplace cheap. Then how do you manage through all that? Kitty, this is just market-based compensation, so we know about this. But I think companies coming out and saying, if you accept a job and you live at home, we're going to pay you less, is a new conversation. Is it? I mean, God, it seems hard to manage.
Well, I think it shows how much Facebook has grown up, right? As a big corporation, that they've got, the labor grades in their comp plan, and it got all the way to Zuckerberg where he actually laid that out for everybody. First of all, I think it's the right call. Like, if people want to go live in North Dakota, by the way, Tim, is that called the Ted Kaczynski? Like, if you go from Silicon Valley,
was he North Dakota or was that Idaho?
I don't know. It's like Idaho, right? It's somewhere up in the mountains. But anyway, I won't call that the Kaczynski, although you could. So if you go away and you're in this dramatically lower cost of living market, it makes sense. All of us in the world of HR automatically get that. I think what's really interesting. So two things. First of all, if I still have a shared address and Tim Sackett is a VP at Facebook and he's wondering if Chris Dunn is really in town, all he does is he says, hey, guess what? We're going to follow the COVID safety standards, but we got a meeting this afternoon. Come on in, get on the metro and come on in.
It's snowing behind you. It's not snowing.
Yeah. So I think you can figure that out. I think the other thing is, it would go both ways, right? If they came back to the Bay Area, then they would get there. The biggest thing I would question, Tim, you have this whole I don't know if it's a myth, but you have this whole standard of the 10 times programmer, right? Mm-hmm. That's the the super programmer, the super developer from a software perspective is worth or gets 10 times the productivity of an average one. If somebody balks at that and says, you know what, I could go across the virtual street to Google or Airbnb, although they may not be hiring for a while, wherever, are you still going to cut their pay? I would assume that, think about it this way, Tim, and I'll throw it to you. 1,000 out of 1,000 people, they say that, Jen. I know there's a lot more people than that might be going from Silicon Valley to somewhere else, or certainly thinking about that. Out of 1,000 people, any drive like this from an HR labor market perspective, you basically want to get 930 to accept it without question based on the benefits.
Yeah.
And then you're going to barter with the other 70 from a talent perspective. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I do think the negotiation thing becomes way better. Because so let's say you're a 23-year-old software engineer, great school, you're going to work for Facebook in Silicon Valley, they're going to pay you $150. That's probably about the going rate, $135, $150.
Right.
Now let's say, hey, you know what? Instead of coming to Silicon Valley, I'm going to actually move to the lowest place in America to live, right? Like I'm going to North Dakota or Mississippi or someplace that's super cheap to live, right?
Yeah, Mississippi is not the Kaczynski, but I was trying to think of a name for that. But I got it.
Yeah, super cheap.
Right.
So I'm trying to come up with a number that makes sense where you go, okay, you're going to make this much less. So let's say I'm 150, just to keep it round. I'm 150 as a software engineer in Silicon Valley. I'm going to Mississippi. We say, hey, we're going to cut your salary by 25%. So now you're 112.
Hey, everybody. Got a quick question for you. Is your job easy, stress-free, and full of rainbows and sunshine every single day? Yeah, I'd say that's a big fat no. Hi, I'm David Noe, host of Speakeasy HR, presented by Payroll Partners, and proud to be part of the Work-Defined community. Take a step down into my Speakeasy live on LinkedIn and YouTube, where we tackle HR and business challenges through raw, uncut, unfiltered conversations. This is HR like you've never heard it before. Bold, real, and full of practical takeaways. Real guests, bold insights, authentic conversations that drive change. Catch every episode on demand through your favorite podcast platform or all the content at speakeasyhr.com.
Right. You're at 112, you still have the biggest house in almost any city in Mississippi. I mean, like, holy crap. But that seems like a huge cut to take because you're still delivering the same amount of work. You're just in a different cost of living that you're making these decisions.
Right.
I don't know. I just think it opens itself up to like this huge dichotomy of pay rates and stuff. And we already know we have issues, right, with pay equity. So it's like, this just to me causes like complete chaos and confusion in ways for companies to actually get around the pay equity thing for sure.
Yeah. I just think, for every 1,000 people you say this to, you're looking for the majority of people to take it. And then probably what happens, Tim, is when you go to Mississippi and you balk at me, then I got to run it through because Facebook has already shown that they're all grown up. Like if Zuckerberg's talking about labor markets in the comp plan, so they're all grown up. So now if you balk when you go to Mississippi and I'm your manager, now I got to put it in a process and we got to go through like this whole thing. And probably what it ends up being, Tim, just to protect and I'm putting this in air quote, the integrity of the comp plan, is I'm probably reclassifying you. Like, you know what, you were probably due a promotion and we're going to get somewhere in between so I can hold my head high to say that we treated everybody the same way. By the way, this is for another pod, but a real quick aside, for all the companies that are saying that, hey, we're going to let you work as long as you want remote.
Forever.
Yeah, kids never forget that IBM Global did that with almost their entire workforce, and a new CEO came in. And by the way, this happened at Yahoo too. And I forget her name. New CEO comes in and says, hey, you know what? To really drive innovation, we need you here.
Marissa Mayer, right?
Yeah, so that's her. And IBM Global did the same thing. Now, it worked out in a rough capacity for IBM Global because it really got viewed from a legal perspective as a proxy to do age discrimination.
Yeah.
They had a bunch of age discrimination stuff, but that goes beyond the point. I just think there's a lot of process that goes through, and I think they put all those people in a process and they figure it out. And I think they're looking for 900 out of 1,000 people to take it, because of the benefits. And, it's interesting. I know we've got to move on, but it's interesting, Tim. I didn't have my labor markets in front of me, like in a comp plan today, but it's interesting that you went from Silicon Valley to Mississippi. So that's for the comp geeks out there. Silicon Valley is like a grade 6 labor market. Mississippi, depending on where you are, is going to be a grade 1 or 2. You said 25%. I'd be interested to get a note from somebody if that's right. That feels kind of right. I think it's somewhere 25, 30%, right?
When you talk about the amount, though, it still seems too high. Like, I mean, I still think you could probably go 40% and still have the same quality of life in Mississippi and Silicon Valley from a pay standpoint. Hey, Katie, 2 quick things on that. One would be, what about if I'm a young, right out of college, going to work for Facebook? Does it give me now the opportunity to live in a part of the world that I never would have thought because of a money standpoint? So now I can go in Paris, Singapore, like some of these or Shanghai, right, are the two like most expensive places in the world to live. Maybe even London. Like, man, like I think I just think we're opening ourselves up for all this. One quick tip, and I'm off to the next topic. Stop using forever when you tell people they can work at home. Like
Yeah.
that's the dumbest thing in the world. Stop that. All right. Last thing, Google, because of all the work at home stuff, or they're saying, hey, we're gonna give, was it $1,000, Katie? They're gonna give
Yeah, it's grand.
$1,000
Yep, $1,000.
to give people to help set up what, like their home office, or just make this better.
Yeah, remote workers, people that are going remote, they're going to give $1,000 for that. It's interesting, right? I think it's just like part of Tim. Like when I see things like that from the folks that are flush with cash, I'm always protective of everybody else, including myself. In our company, I'm always protective because not everybody has the resources to do that. And what do you think they're spending the money on, Tim? I'm just curious.
I don't like, so I did think back, like the only time I worked at home full time was with Applebee's, and they said, hey, set up your home office, just send us the receipts. And I can still remember, because I was like, well, I don't want to take advantage. I'm a company guy, right? I don't want to take advantage of the company, but
shout out to Applebee's.
But I didn't want to take advantage, but I had to set up a home office. I bet all said and done with file cabinet, desk, copier,
file cabinet. I love it. Tell me more, Tim, about your home office.
Hey, I'm an HR person, had to, maintain files, blah, blah, blah. But no, I bet I spent $4,000. So I'm thinking $1,000 seems super light to me if you're setting up a home office.
Hold on, I gotta jump in here. So you're at Applebee's. That's a while back in your career. How many years ago is it that you dropped $4,000 on your home office? Because that's fascinating to me.
Is it 15 years ago? Probably 15 years ago. I mean, look, I had an office. I needed office furniture. I'm not going to buy cheap office furniture, Katie. This is my home. Like my wife's not going to, my wife, we're not buying like some pressboard IKEA stuff. Come on.
It's a file cabinet made of solid gold. I mean, damn, $4,000, homie. That's a lot.
You've never bought a piece of furniture in the last decade. Talk to Ange, and then she'll tell you that's.
Yeah, I don't. Right. She makes the calls because she has better taste.
So my first impression of Google giving $1,000 for people to work remotely was super light, because there's so many things that you rely on in an office environment that you have to have if you truly want to be set up. Or what you're asking people to do is to say, hey, I already believe you've had this stuff bought. And so we're basically giving you $1,000 to rent the stuff and use the stuff that you've already bought for your personal use. And again, that's a little shady when it comes to setting somebody up completely on their own from that standpoint.
So if you believe, Tim, that, somebody in your employment needs something, I will say this, related to your comment about that it's light. Now, I want to give the disclaimer that the vast majority of companies cannot drop $1,000 or any money to people working remotely. I mean, that's just the reality. But I will say this, I draw the parallel to relocation. Because, in the old days, probably when you were at Applebee's, Tim, or even before, in the old days, before the 2008 recession, there was a form of gold-plated relocation, right?
Oh, yeah.
I
have one of those. I got one of those.
You market your house, and then if it doesn't sell, they buy it and put it under management and all this stuff. And then poof, all that went away. The relocation people know what I'm talking about. And all of it went away, and it just became lump sum thing. And the lump sum things, when you do something like that, is you want to give, if you believe that it's not enough money, the whole thing about the lump sum is you want to give less than the market rate, and you just want to check it off your list. You want to say, check, did it? We covered that. The rest is on you. Now, we have a fundamental disagreement about 4,000 versus 1,000, but I'm anyway, I just I
sit in I don't know, an area, a Herman Miller chair, right, in my desk. I'm sure every Google associate has $1,000 office chair when they go to the office. But when you go home, you're supposed to sit on a folding chair. Like, no, like a really solid office chair is going to cost you $500. Like,
let me tell you what the bootstrap people in America do. And Tim, I view you as part of Bootstrap America. So you're going to get this, even though you're arguing it for Google, you're going to get this. Here's $1,000 Herman Miller chair. I don't even know what that is, but okay. So here's what you do. You say, hey, guess what? Like when you're moving to Mississippi, like out of Silicon Valley, just come and get the chair, like at headquarters. That's the bootstrap way to do it. You say, hey, so we know you have needs, but we have all this stuff. Why don't you just come get the chair and throw it in the U-Haul? And by the way, these funky, like open space seating areas we have, just take one of those too. And you know what? You can even get the dividers if you want, because that would look really good in your third bedroom in Jackson, Mississippi.
You know, part of the attraction to go to work for a Facebook, a Google, a Twitter, all these big kind of brands, a Microsoft, whatever you want, whoever you are, Amazon, was that in coming to work, and it was basically you're going to Disneyland, right? You had unlimited food and drinks and 14 flavors of kombucha, and you had a ping pong table, and you had a gaming station and sleep pods and all this crap. Like it's a legendary, the crap that these companies would buy to attract people to stay and work and be happy to work and want to come to work. Laundry services, all this stuff. Like a vast majority of that stuff goes away with remote work, and also the expense goes away, which again they have the money to be able to make sure someone's set up good at home. Or do they start sending like HelloFresh lunches, to people, if they're working at home? Like, right? Okay, I'm saying, hey, they're already spending that money now. Like, why is that going to stop if I'm remote working? Like, I want, Uber Eats dropping off my lunch every day. I want a burrito, right, from Qdoba.
So, Tim Sackett, Crocs, HelloFresh delivered to your new abode in Jackson, Mississippi out of Facebook. Chris Dunn says no Crocs, and Bootstrap America, I have your back. If you want like good office furniture, just go to Facebook and pick up your chair.
All right, KD, we want to talk about one last thing. We'll get everybody out of here. Sports returning, right?
I was fascinated. I'm going to talk pro sports. I was fascinated by some of the return to work plans that are going on. Did you see the diagrams that Major League Baseball did their best from an OSHA and employee relations perspective? And they got to deal with the union. They did these great diagrams in the dugout and even in the stands about where everybody would sit when they returned for an 82 game thing. And what I really loved, Tim, is the fact that if you weren't playing, like if you were on the roster but you weren't active, you had to go above the dugout,
in the stands,
and sit. I'm assuming in one of two things, and I'll throw it to you, and you can like wrap us up and get us out. I'm assuming that you're either going to sit in the hot sun when that happens, or it's going to be like travel baseball, which I know you have a lot of history with.
You're going to put in.
You bring a canopy, like mom and dad are going to bring a canopy for you, and you're going to sit under that, maybe with a juice box. What say you?
And then how do you get your sunflower seeds, which that was a whole nother rule too. Can't spit them, or the bubble gum, all that stuff. Like, hey, you yell down to the dugout, like, hey, throw me up a bag of seeds, and someone like there's a little hook that comes up, and hands you something like Gatorade. It does remind me a little bit of college baseball, Katie, where the pitchers who weren't pitching or in the rotation to pitch that day, potentially, they would always have to go behind home plate and with clipboards, and they would track pitches. They would track all this stuff.
Yeah.
They would do speeds. So some of these guys are going to be completely used to that because they're going to go, oh, if I wasn't playing, then I was tracking stuff. But my son, who played college baseball, saw that and looked at the dugout stuff, and he's like, that's not workable. Like, there's no possible way you're going to keep. I mean, the dugout culture is that you're constantly kind of playing slap ass with everybody and, doing so. Like, it's boring to sit in that dugout for 3.5 hours. You have to do something. And they're saying, oh, no, you're going to be 6 feet apart from each other. Like, I just don't even know if that works. I'll give it to Major League Baseball. Their plan from top to bottom was insane. I did see Spain is trying to get people to come back and visit Spain, right, as tourists.
So
And
they have a similar Major League Baseball plan about where you're going to stand in Barcelona?
no, like on the beaches, they actually gridded it out, and they have an app that someone developed that you have to reserve your spot on the beach in the grid, and that's the only spot you could go to besides walking. I mean, they have the aisles that you walk down to get to the water, back to your spot. And part of me looked at that and goes, that's a way better way to go to the beach. Because you didn't have people like sitting right now, on you, and you have like some family with 14 kids screaming, like that's, sitting basically, and the kid keeps running across your blanket. Like, I don't want that. So I like that.
Do they have actual lines on the plan?
Actual
Like, do they
lines.
lay down tape? That's
No,
interesting.
they put stakes, and then they put like the the ribbon tape and stuff, and so everyone had their own little like 10 by 10 little area to go into.
I don't know if that's going to make me drop $15K to go to Spain and to go on a gridded beach.
Now I'm gonna have to call Delta and cancel our tickets. I got you and I a ticket that was gonna be a surprise.
Oh yeah, that's tough. Hey, one last thing before we get out. I think the other interesting thing that all the major league sports are thinking about, and I think also high school and college sports are thinking about this too, and I think it's very real as we enter the summer, is that really you have to plan in a way where you have to get your head around what happens if somebody tests positive, and you have to rationalize and get your head around the fact that everything's not going to shut down.
Yeah.
So I think the new normal, and I still don't think we're caught up with testing. If I'm disappointed in anything, it's like the level of testing that we have available and the level of dialogue about testing. But I think all these sports, I think, are microcosms of the workplace. And I think workplaces are following this too, in that, hey, we have to go into this knowing that somebody's going to test positive. And when that happens, we have to have a plan to kind of get them away from the rest of the workforce, let them work through it, but we can't just shut down, right?
No, I totally agree. I think it's going to be the new normal, not just for Major League Sports, but for all of us in a work environment. And, we've already seen it in manufacturing facilities where they're trying to separate shifts. So if somebody tests positive on one shift, they don't have to shut the entire plant down. They can just shut that shift down for a couple of weeks, make sure everyone gets well, and continue on with business. We're all going to have to think in different terms like that.
Right. Totally agree.
Hey, everybody. That was HR Famous for this week. He is Chris Dunn. I am Tim Sackett, and we are out.